Welcome back, everyone. My name's Eddie Harold. Welcome to my Life with Breath Expert Series. This week, I have the amazing honor of hosting Mike Maher, who is at the forefront of this new wave of breath facilitators that are moving throughout the world. And Mike came in kind of the Wim Hof phase of the breath. And, that's where Mike first got going with it. But he has this podcast called Take a Deep Breath. And I think it's the number one YouTube podcast in the world. Mike has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and I'm really excited to share a conversation with Mike today. So welcome, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Ed. What a beautiful introduction. And yeah, thank you. It's funny, you just said like new wave of instructors. There is already another wave. And I'm already
Yeah.
feeling like the old kid on the block as I'm seeing all these new guys and gals hit the streets with their HD cameras on the beach and on the mountains, filming these beautiful breathwork exercises. But yeah, just tickled me when you said that.
Well, the only one old here is me. So I know there's a lot going on in your life, and to really maximize the time, the conversation we're going to share, let's just have a little centering and bring ourselves together, and then we'll dive into whatever the universe wants us to speak about.
Perfect.
So if we could all just kind of sit up tall in our spine, anchor our awareness down into our lower body, and just feel safe from our feet to our buttock, and our buttock through the belly, opening this huge chest of ours, letting go of any insecurity or self-sabotage thinking. And if it feels right, just let your eyes close, release and relax your low jaw, and allow the tongue to rest on the upper palate. If you want to control your breath, great. If you don't want to, that's great. Your body knows how to breathe on its own. And as you begin to notice the breath coming in and out of your body, see if you can practice self-observation without judgment, without labeling. See if you can stretch a little more air in and a little more air out. Just imagine for the next space of time in your life that it would be impossible to be negative. It would be impossible to be angry. It would be impossible to host a thought form or memory that didn't come from our heart. Transitioning from the surface mind into the deeper mind, a place of deep remembering and knowing, a place of teaching and listening. Notice your breath knows exactly where to go right now at this moment of your life. How does it do that? How does it know that? I'm in the United States, Mike's in the UK, and we're connected, two brothers becoming one. What does it feel like to observe ourselves without judging ourselves, knowing that each time we judge ourselves, we break our own heart? finding a space in your chest intuitively where you feel really comfortable, regardless of your story or what you're wearing or what's in your bank account. Mike, you want to lead a few rounds of breathing here?
Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so just
Dive in,
continue.
brother.
Thank you. So yeah, just stay within your space. Just start to pay attention to the slightly cooler air as it comes in through the nose or mouth. And slightly warmer air on the exhale. And I'm a really big fan of the bow and arrow breath. Sometimes conscious connected circular breath, but just this idea of pulling back that bow, really filling everything up, belly, chest, but taking your time. So really slowly, gently inhaling in. And then when you're full and the last molecule of air is in, just a complete relax, almost letting go of that bow and arrow. So really take your time. How slow and deep can you go? And then completely relaxing the exhale. And on the inhale, when we're going nice and slow, really take a moment to savor as you draw in the energy, as you draw in the breath, almost like a fine wine or a chocolate. And as we do the completely relaxed exhale, look at each exhale as another opportunity to relax a little deeper, giving yourself permission to let go and relax a little more. Just do a few more with me. And we'll do one more. Really let this one count now. So really savor, really drawing in the air, filling up, bringing that last molecule. And then when we let go, let's do a little sigh. Let all that energy out. That feels good. Thank you, Ed. Back to you.
Mike. So in a moment, we're going to open our eyes. Just take another moment in the inner world and fill every cell of your body with self-love. And fill every cell of your body with self-kindness and self-generosity, joy. Because we know these work. And when you're ready to leave the meditation, slowly open your eyes. Works every time.
Beautiful. Thank you
Thanks
for
so
that.
much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to connect with us here.
That's my pleasure. I can't wait to get stuck in. I've been looking forward to this because I think you've been on. I think we've done 3 interviews now, if I'm correct. So it's gonna be interesting flipping the tables around a little bit now on the conversation.
Yeah, I had the honor of being on Mike's show several times, and Mike is an amazing host. And not only that, now he's become an amazing facilitator. In fact, Mike and I are both on the Breath Source, which is a new app that has a ton of science and application and breath experiences and trainings that's taken over the world. What do you think about being on that app together, Mike? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the fact that you're on there. That we've got all these beautiful breathwork instructors. Some of them quite well known. Some of them on the way up. But I'm really attracted to as a user, let alone being on there, is just like you've just got like this world of breath work, and I keep calling them like all these different flavors. And so it's like some people might like the flavor of Ed's breath work or mine or Dan or whoever it is, but because it's all in this curated app and people have gone through this process of getting into the app, you've got really lovely quality. So yeah, so I think it's really important part of the breathwork scene. And it's only just getting started, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's a ton of great talent everybody's positive and optimistic that, we can turn this thing around.
Mm,
As a species globally, we're at kind of at a tipping point where, like,
mm.
what's it going to be? Is it going to be love and acceptance, or is it going to be fear and anger? And the breath has been used for thousands of years to move away from negative states of consciousness, and now it's in an app form where we can really spread the wings and the branches a little wider than we could 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
So what is it like having the number one breath podcast in YouTube in the world?
I try not to think about it too much. We're about 2 weeks away we're on track to hit 200,000 beautiful souls in about 2 weeks. We're at 198 at the minute. And after a while, the numbers just, I remember when it got to 1,000, it just blew me away. I was like, how 1,000 people have hit subscribe? But I've talked about this a little bit before, actually. I really just focus on um, having a good conversation, similar to you, I'm sure. I try not to let the numbers influence anything. Um, Try to stay away from the comments as much as possible. Sometimes I'll respond to a few things, but really it's I just want to have the best conversations with the best people and deliver value. And the last bit on that is very selfishly, it's about my learning as well. And it's like whatever's interesting to me. And so I've had the great fortune of speaking to so many wonderful human beings, and to have them for a couple of hours, read their book, speak to them before we hit record, after we hit record, make some connections like we've done. So what a gift. So really, it's almost driven through that. I'm trying to learn a lot more. And whenever I've deviated from that, if I've tried to do something that's, say, a little bit clickbaity, or it's never done as well, but whenever it's come from
Right.
that good place of I want to learn, I had a guy in a little while ago called the Breathing Diabetic. Fascinated me. His name's Nick Heath. I was like, I really want to know everything that's going on here. Great podcast. I was so eager to talk to him. I had so many questions. I geeked out so much, and it's one of the best performing podcasts this year. And I was like, there must be a coincidence there in my passion, and whereas some of them I've maybe gone for somebody that's got like a lot of subscribers or something like that, they've not done as well. And so I think people can feel it when you're really connected in and you're having that good conversation. So I don't really let the numbers, the subscribers, really dictate too much now. It's like, how can I have a really freaking good conversation and learn something?
Well, you've had some huge names on there, everybody in the field, whether it's, the science based or pranayama based, or, indigenous cultures and shamanism. This stuff's been around for a really, really long time. And now we're beginning to see that it can be wedged seamlessly into just about any human platform for health or wellness, performance, drug
Mhm.
addiction, any types of the negative, lower emotions. You've had some great people on there. Has there been any highlights, that any light bulbs that have gone off in your head over the years where you were like, wow?
Oh, I would say that 9 out of 10 of them, I feel like that. I'm like, oh, sugar, that's amazing. Or I always, and it's not all about the breath. It's like 90% breath, and then the rest is like wellness, spirituality, and a few other bits and bobs, or maybe 80% breath, and then yeah, I leave a little bit of space for, like, say, indigenous cultures, or I'm obsessed with hunter gatherers and how we used to live and ancestral
Mhm.
living and stuff. But yeah, or what comes to mind? I tell you, I've just the podcast that's going to be coming out this week is with a guy called Lawrence Blair, and him and his brother in the 70s did a 10-year documentary series called Ring of Fire.
Mhm.
Incredible. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. They were living with pirates in the 70s, and they had a couple of cameras. This is the 70s and 80s. There's no phones. They've got batteries and limited tape, and they're making this document. And they're out with pirates for months, eating gruel, living in the hull of the ship with cockroaches. And then they went to all these places and they lived with cannibals and everything. But the reason I was really intrigued in these guys, there's this clip on YouTube, and think what people can take this with a pinch of salt, but they found a qigong master in Indonesia in, I think, the 80s, and they went to him because one of the people's having problems with their eye, and so he went to do some work, and he was doing needlework, and he was able to deliver a little bit of an electric charge to the needle through his hand, and they were getting like electric shocks. And he goes, "I'm not doing anything special here. It's just like what an electric eel does." And you see on the camera how he starts touching people on their tummy or on the hand, and they're getting like these electric shocks. Anyway, fast forward to a little bit later in the documentary, they're saying this guy's got other abilities, and he scrunches up a piece of newspaper and he makes it catch fire. And I'm like, what the hell have I just seen? Is it real? Is it fake? So this guy came on, and he was one of the brothers that made this film. So I just wanted to know what was going on. Who was this guy? So that's a bit more of the esoteric, spiritual, woo-woo stuff. But yeah, there's so much more.
Yeah, these qigong guys, they have all this chi right here,
Yeah.
and they can do amazing healing where they really blend spirit and science. It's remarkable what they can do with consciousness.
Yeah.
It's been around a while.
Yes. And I think from what I'm gathering as well, most of them you'll never hear about it because,
Right.
like, for example, I had a guy on recently from White Tiger Qigong, and when we went to film the interview, he turned his camera off, and I was like, "What's going on here?" Because I can't show my face. I've taken an oath not to become famous. So that was quite cool, actually. So we carried on with the interview, but I think especially the most popular, or not popular, the real masters, I think we'll probably never hear about them because they've taken these oaths. They're not meant to get famous. They're doing things probably in their local community. They're probably not on YouTube or Instagram. And I think a lot of it might get lost, or it's past. I don't know. It's a very interesting area. You know, I'd love to go. This particular guy, the one that was doing the fire stuff, he's passed away now. And what the White Tiger Qigong guy was saying to me was he had a lot of liver problems, and the liver's associated with fire, and if we use too much of the fire energy, it burns the liver out. And so he was kind of saying that there might be something here, and this guy was maybe showing off a little bit, and a few other bits. And so I think we're very lucky that we've got that captured. And I think, oh, what if humanity could get hold of this information and they're able to do it more? And then another part of me goes, would it be misused? Most likely, but there'd be a lot of healing at the same time. It's that balance, isn't it? It's like we invented planes, and then 30 years later we're dropping bombs on people through those planes. So it's that duality, isn't it, of any gift we have. Yeah,
It's quite a dance these days, isn't it? Now, besides the amazing global podcast that you have and the amazing guests that you've had over the past few years, I know that you also are involved in some other things, some other programs and trainings, and I mean, you get around. What's going on in your life right now?
So I became a father 11 months ago. So that in itself,
Congratulations.
thank you, has been the best thing that has ever happened to me. Like the best thing. Like nothing compares. Like I cannot give you any other thing that even comes close. It's been the hardest thing as well. I think they say you lose 700 hours sleep in the first year. So
There
that's
you go.
true. I think I'm probably close to 1,000. But interestingly, what's come with that is a lot of stress, financial worry. Like I quit my day job to do this full time. So I'm a full-time breath coach since my son was born. And then a lot of stress has come through that because of the responsibility and everything else. And interestingly, before we hit record, you and I were talking about this. And then with the stress has come a lot of shame. Because, oh, hang on, I'm a breath coach. I shouldn't be stressed. So I've been dealing with all that this year. I've come out the other side of it now. So to answer your question, what's been going on? I've just come back from your beautiful country. I was in Wyoming. Oh my God,
Yeah.
beautiful. I didn't get to Yellowstone, which I'm gutted about, but I spent 10 days in Thermopolis, in the hot springs, learning this technique called vivation, which our mutual friend Tom Granger put me onto. Interviewed the CEO of that, or lineage holder, a couple of times, Paul Hughes, and that's really helped me. So I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit here. Before I found breathwork, my stress was probably always around a 9 out of 10. I'm a stress head. I was big into caffeine. I smoked a little bit in my younger years, did some drugs and a few other bits and bobs. But I was very much living on adrenaline and stress. And then after the whole Wim Hof thing, I came back and noticed my lungs were very shallow and I was panting and suddenly started to take control of my breath, and my stress came down pretty quick once I learned some techniques. Probably got down to about a 3, and it sat at
Right.
around a 3, but that became the new baseline. So I've been this kind of guy that's always got this. I would describe it as like a background radiation of stress, not high, but low. But because it's always there and it's chronic, it can be quite wearing, and your resilience then comes down a little bit. Anyway, so I do the breath work. I'm doing coherence breathing all the time. It's definitely kept it at bay. But the interesting thing is, coming back from this Vivation teacher training, I'd say I've got it down to like a 1.5 now with these
Right.
techniques. It felt like the missing piece for me. I'm happy to delve into plenty of that, but I would say like it was a beautiful 10 days. I learned some wonderful things, and yeah, it's called the science of happiness, or one of the ways it's described. And I never looked at happiness as a skill before, and so now I've been like, well, maybe I'm just a bit unhappy sometimes. Like, oh no, you've got to practice. You've got to practice
Right.
happiness, like everything else. We practice being miserable a lot. So yeah, that's some of it. So becoming a new dad, traveling to the US, working on the app with you guys, and then and the last bit is I work with clients. So I have a number of clients I take on 4 or 5 a month, and I work very, very from my perspective, very intensely. So I build them a program from the ground up. So no two clients have the same program for me. They come to me. I describe the breath as a Swiss Army knife. So I've got all these little tools. No,
Right.
no,
I
no,
love that.
no tools. The same tool for everybody. Some people might need a little screwdriver. Some people the scissors, the magnifying glass. So the whole reason I do the podcast, apart from getting to meet all these cool people, is I'm constantly finding new tools for the Swiss Army knife. And then when I meet a client and they tell me what their desires are, what their goals are, where their breath health is currently, I'll then build them something based on what they need. So yeah, so that's it. So it's a pretty busy at the minute, but yeah, loving it. And now that I've got the stress down a bit more and I'm practicing the skill of happiness, it's really nice. Yeah.
It's great when we find value like that, inside ourselves, and it's been resting there the whole time. But
Mm,
we just kind of missed it.
yeah.
We come out of what I call the karma years. It's like 15 to like 30, and some hang on a little longer, but you've got all these violations of the law of nature that we thought we could be different, and it would be okay, and we would find happiness, and maybe we did for a couple minutes or a couple weeks or a year or so, but eventually we just like something's missing. And you had the kind of like this wake up period,
Mm,
and you're like, I you can't really describe it, but something, a spark or a little light
mm,
or something goes off inside us, and then we decide to look at ourselves differently, or we look at the world differently, or we
yeah.
look at relationship opportunities differently. And then then we've got this whole debris field behind us of material that we need to heal, before we can get down to that stress level of 1.5.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I almost look at it sometimes, it's like leveling up through a computer game. It's like you have to go through that level to get to the next one. So probably wasn't ready for a Vivation type thing a couple of years ago. Had to go through the steps I had to go through. Like even this year, I discovered something called tension release exercises, TRE, with I had Dr. David Baselli on, who came up with this. And my body's been doing all this like crazy stuff that I think sometimes it's called Kriyas, but I've been having all these energetic movements. I've
Releases.
just been going through that process. And that came at the right time. I had a lot of tension in the diaphragm, years of what Dr. Belisavranich calls gut sucking. So I was sucking that gut in for 3 decades, trying to hide
Right.
having a belly. And so there's a lot of tension there, literally tension, because it's been tense for decades. And so as I started going through this trauma release process, I was getting wiggles in my shoulders, but most powerfully was the diaphragm just going freaking crazy, finally able to move and allowing it to move in the way it wanted to move, and it was directing my breath. It was a very interesting thing. But yeah, I feel like we have to level up. So we're going through the path of life and all these different things. But yeah, you're right, there's the debris field behind us of all the things we have done or should have done or all those different things. But yeah, it's
Oh.
Wonderful time. It's a wonderful time to be alive. There's so much information out there, almost too much information. But I feel like we're so lucky to be alive at this time. I know there's a lot of dark out there. I know there's a lot of challenges going on out there. But never. I heard this thing the other day saying, you know what? If it was a couple of 100 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, you had to have a relationship with your priest to even know the Bible. They wouldn't even give you a copy of the Bible. It
Right.
wasn't even the language you could understand. That's how much information was controlled. And now, so many podcasts, so many courses, so many books out there, from people that have spent their life studying something. It's really, really good.
There's never been this many people on the planet at one time asking so many questions about who am I? What is
Mm,
my purpose? Why am I here? Usually
mm,
you would just do what your parents did and what your grandparents did before that. You never left your hometown. And, there was, if you did that, you were shamed out of the family. Somehow you weren't a good family member,
mm,
your life's not going to change. Your answers that you give yourself in life aren't going to change until you change the question. And, when you're stressed out, it's just, I need answers. You know, you don't have time to pause and reflect, like maybe I'm asking the wrong questions and I need to change my questions. And that's where this diaphragm comes in. Because
mm.
once you start accessing the sensitivity around the upper abdomen, you start accessing the sensitivity in our lower lobes of our lungs, then everything that we're not begins to die. And
Mm,
it's a bumpy ride at first because because all this stuff's going on in your brain, the microbiome of your gut. But this thing right here, who would have thunk it, is like the master switch, the master key that unlocks everything that was hidden from us or locked before.
yeah, yeah, incredible muscle, isn't it? It's up until probably the age of 35, I don't think I ever thought about my diaphragm. I don't even know if I even knew what it was.
Neither
It's
did I.
incredible. Yeah, and now it's something I think about every day. Diaphragm health and flexibility and strength. There's this the numbers are going to be a little bit rough, but I think there's people might know of something called vital capacity, which is the amount of air you can suck in and then the amount of air you can blow out, and they measure that. So if you've got one balloon and you're able to measure that total airflow, that's your vital capacity. So it's different from lung capacity and tidal volume. And I think at the age of 30, that let's say that's 80%. When you get down to the age of 80, I think you've got about 37% of your vital capacity, because diaphragm's got weak, muscles have become very, very rigid, and so your rib cage has become like a metal bird cage. Your diaphragm has atrophied, and so the muscle's no longer there. So this has just been something very interesting that I've been really working on my clients, but also on myself, is exercises. And I've learned some from you, actually, from our first podcast, how to get all this really flexible. But I believe it's one of the markers that they use to look at for longevity, which is really cool. Like, how much air can you really shift? Because when you think about a sick old person, generally, if you were to picture that in your mind's eye, normally a mouth breath, it's normally very shallow, and it's normally fairly quick. When you think about a superhero, normally great posture, stoic, mouth's normally closed, deep breaths, hands on the hips. And so those two images are kind of built into us. Where are they from? Maybe it's from TV and films, but I think we've also got a knowing of what good breathing is. So yeah, diaphragm is very overlooked. It's less overlooked these days, but I think we could all do with improving our diaphragmatic health. It just seems to be one of those no-brainers.
Yeah, I think when we say the diaphragm's a muscle, we really are undervaluing, when we think of a muscle, it's just a muscle around a
Mm,
bone. And, I look at the diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm, as an organ. It
mm,
has so many different responsibilities. It touches so many other organs. It has
mm,
so much to do with balancing our fluids and gases so that we can remain in good rhythm and cycles, because, not every day is going to be, the sun's going to come out, you
yeah.
know, there's going to be days where, it's going to be stormy, mentally,
Mm,
and
mm,
they just seem to come out of the blue. But if you have this thing and you've got a relationship with it, which is really unusual because it doesn't have these sensory nerves like these have. Like I
Mm.
can pinch my arm and I can feel I'm pinching my arm. There isn't a lot of sensory fascia on it. So you kind of have to get in like a dark room with yourself and begin to notice, okay, I feel something here, or I feel something up here on my exhale. And then you're off on like this journey into this dark room of all this energy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so our mutual connection, Tom Granger, who has Draw Breath and Aria Breath, he interviewed a cardiologist called Dr. Alan Watkins. It's a good podcast, actually. I'm trying to get him on my podcast at the minute. And he was talking about coherence breathing. And coherence breathing, one of the many benefits, or one of the things that's going on with the coherence breath, is we really engage the diaphragm. We're doing this slow, rhythmic, equal breath.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have called the diaphragm the second heart. It's another pump. Um, Typically, when we're gut sucking or we're not breathing deep, we never really engage the diaphragm. I know it can move. It moves around 1 centimeter for most people, but it can move 10 centimeters. And move massages, all these different things. But when we engage the diaphragm, the cardiologist was saying, if you do coherence breathing for 20 minutes a day for 6 months, you can reverse the age of your heart by a decade. And so the way I've interpreted that is by taking some pressure off our heart, by engaging our diaphragm properly, the heart isn't having to overwork.
Yes.
So let's give that heart some space by doing some diaphragmatic breathing, because and this is a big thing I teach a lot, is we live in very different lives from our hunter-gatherer ancestors that were sprinting, digging, playing, touching the earth, making fires in groups, a lot of love, a lot of connection, a lot of things going on. And me, I sit at this desk a lot in artificial light, and I eat soft foods and chronic stress and all these different things. And even recently, just learning that just by being in a seated position, we are impeding the diaphragm a bit, as opposed to standing. And so all these things are working against us. But the beautiful thing is, once we know that, we can start to unpick it. And that is really where I spend a lot of my time, is like, how can I be healthy, and how can I help clients to be healthy and breathe better despite all of the things that are going on around us right now? So I've got like an earthing mat here, got my light blocking glasses, got a red light
Yes.
therapy device, I have massage, I do breath work. So I'm constantly looking at, touch the ground outside, I get daylight in my eyes first thing. So although I'm the breath guy looking at breath work a lot, I really try and take that that holistic view to health as much as possible. Go, what's free or nearly free that I can do that's going to unpick some of the modern issues that we're experiencing?
It's really interesting that the diaphragm, its location, its movement, uh the inspiratory and expiratory muscles, or the strength and flexibility of these muscles actually protect the heart from going into these hyper states of hyperventilation or really high levels of blood pressure and heart fibrillation. So it's almost like we're retraining the brain that when we sense a higher heart rate, rather than just let it go up, we can stop and pause, and we can connect with our inspiratory and expiratory muscles. And then the brain begins to see and rewires itself that when the heart rate's up, I don't have to let it get to 180. I can actually grab it at 120. I can strengthen these muscles of inhale and exhale. And now I've got another line of defense to protect the number one organ that is dying first. I mean, heart disease is the number one killer. And when you think about it, having only one motor nerve, the phrenic nerve, it's almost genius, because you're going to have to invest some time to strengthen the electrical current or tone of this nerve. And with the diaphragm only having one motor nerve, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I love
Which is
that.
great, because we can't handle healing. Everybody wants to heal overnight, but it's not realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes in little bits and pieces and little ahas, and holding yourself erect when you used to be like this,
Yes.
or maybe keeping our mouth shut when we used to talk, all these little things. And it's all coming from right here. And we don't even think about this being intelligent.
Yeah. It generally, our decline of health generally takes a while. Not always, but generally, we eat pizza every day or alcohol or we get bad sleep. But you're right. Then we want a pill to just feel in. But hang on, no, you spent 3 decades making yourself poorly. It's going to take some time and patience and love to get back, to reverse some of that, if not all of it. So yeah, you're right. There is this. I need to feel better right now.
Right.
This
And that's a
I've just come
choice.
out. Oh, yeah, yeah, choice. Yeah, yeah, a decision. Yeah, but powerful, isn't it? Like decisions can take years to come to, but then everything can change in a second, can't it? Once you make that decision.
It's so interesting the time that we're living in where more people are saying, I'm choosing my reality. It's not being chosen for me.
Mm.
Something's not quite right there.
Yeah.
And, I don't want any part of that. And it's
Mm.
so interesting because you have this, this restart, a rebooting breath. It just takes one breath to pause. And sometimes that's just enough to start to rewire the brain, rewire the microbiome of the gut, where we can manage emotions and thoughts, where in the past they managed us.
Yeah.
And you're
Yes.
on the foreground of this.
Yeah. A lot of responsibility. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned I'm a big fan of microbiome stuff. I was obsessed with fecal transplants years ago. I was listening to a podcast and I was like, what the hell? They're swapping the poo around of people. But I had a guy on recently, Dr. James Kinross, who's been doing this for 20 years. And he was talking about nasal biome and lung biome. I've never heard those ones
Mhm.
before. And he was saying nasal biome in particular, he believes was a really good indicator on how sick you're going to get with COVID. Because if you've got a really good nasal biome, it's going to protect you from a lot of stuff. So yeah, I
Exactly.
know we've got nasal nitric oxide and that helps do stuff, but actually the biome's a little bit different. And so I'm really trying to protect that biome now by doing things like not shoving those sprays up there that decongest you, not using those little
Right.
inhalers, trying to be careful with the nasal hairs, careful like even tissue, even tissue paper that we blow our nose with is bleached, and so we've got to be really careful with some of this thing because you put a lot of chemicals up there and it starts to destroy that, and that's your first line of defense. You want to keep that as healthy as possible. So yeah, so gut biome, yeah, really interested in that, but very recently now thinking other biomes as well.
Well, look how it's all connected. Healthy
Mm.
diaphragm,
Yeah,
healthy microbiome,
yeah,
nasal breathing, strong immunity. It
mm.
all makes sense when you can follow the dots.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, the whole nose thing and the COVID. This is our number one line of defense of keeping airborne pollutants that we can't see out of our body. This is
mm.
really not the best way.
Yeah,
You think about how far we're protected before it goes into our lungs, from coming through the nose, sinuses. Just it's amazing. And I used to get emails from teachers of mine, and they would just be so upset that like it wasn't on TV. Like every night there'd be briefings about COVID and all this stuff and on the news, and nobody was ever talking about breathing through your nose,
yeah.
exhaling longer than your inhale, strengthening your diaphragm, protecting your digestion. And these got some of these younger teachers, they can get fired up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel the same. I had a couple of bits I learned from doctors during COVID, which was pretty cool. One was that they'd learned to put their patients on the side. When they put them on the back and they impeded the back, they couldn't take as deep breaths, and people ended up on more ventilators. This is early COVID, but the minute you put somebody on their side, and it's quite interesting actually because slight tangent, but whenever I go off to a breath festival and someone's doing a conscious connected breath, pretty much 99% of people, if not 100%, are lying on their backs. And I'll do it on the side and I can get so much more space. It makes it so much more potent and powerful. So I love that. So space in the back. The other thing I got from some doctors during COVID was the ones that really understood the breath were going around humming during their rounds because they
Yeah.
were increasing this miracle nasal nitric oxide gas, which is antifungal, sterile, vasodilator, makes you take a better breath. And so they knew that by just being silly and humming a little bit while they're walking around the hospital, they were giving themselves a lot more protection against this virus, which is pretty cool.
It's nature's way of ear, nose, throat. When
Mm,
you vibrate here, ear, nose, throat, you get this amazing cleansing. And who would have thunk of it? That's how the ancients were doing it.
yeah.
And it has this amazing effect on focus, which is also really because everything works on suction and pressure.
Mm,
Gosh, man, you've got so many pearls of wisdom, Mike, with these. Well, you already have them in your own, but these guests that you have, like, this is gold.
yeah. Yeah. I every time I do a podcast, I get something every single time. And, because at some point, I mean, I remember when I started this, I thought I'll just do 10 interviews. And the same with you, you've done so many of these. And I thought, you know what, probably 10 and that will probably cover everything. And then I did the ninth and I was like 10th and I thought I'll do one more. And the 11th one blew my mind. And we're up to about 84 now, something like that. And so, and there's no signs of stopping. We've actually got a huge list now of people that we're trying to get on. So, and this is where I'm taking a little bit of a left turn, tiny bit, is what I've noticed with a lot of people, clients, potential clients, people on my YouTube or my email list, is they know a lot of these exercises now because they're out there. But the big thing that's holding them back is habits and consistency. And so I'm
Mhm.
trying to get on some habits experts now, some people that talk about grit, people that set up their days properly, because I feel like there's this whole bit of breath work that we're not really talking about too much, which is like, okay, so I can nasal breathe, I can do diaphragmatic breathing, and I know the importance, but I haven't really gone down the reason why for me personally. I haven't done the deep work on myself as to why, and or my lifestyle is so busy. How the hell am I going to get time to do all these exercises? So this is the new area I'm getting very excited about. Is like, can I help people really build long lasting habits? Because I feel like if you can combine great habits and grit with potent breathing exercises, that's like a really good recipe for success. And I feel like almost half the story is missing at the minute, because, like, again, we live in a information age. I can learn almost anything on the internet now, but do I apply it? And I'll give you a good example of this, or a very sad example of this. I started watching some of these reels, because I make reels, I make TikToks, and so I thought, oh, I'll see what other people are doing. And you get into what's called a scroll hole.
Mhm.
And you end up just scrolling. And sometimes I'll just do 20 minutes and I'll go, okay, let's test myself here. What did I just watch? Let's try and remember it. Maybe three things. So it's like, what have you just done for those 20 minutes? What has that changed? It's not like reading a book. So we live in a junk information age as well. So yeah, this is just a bit. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I'm just thinking, like, how can I help people truly transform? And I feel like the habits is like a big part of that. So that's my next little mission, is how to accomplish that and share that with people in an easy way.
Well, I love what you said earlier about your clients and how each one of them you give a different practice to. Like,
Mm,
I think that is genius. I think it is so important that it's not one size fits all, that we do have enough tools in our toolbox so that, number one, we don't do any harm,
mm,
and really tuning in to allowing the client or the patient, to figure it out on their own. They want to fix it on their own, even though they come to us for help.
mm,
And having the skill sets that you have, and having what you just said of just everybody's different,
mm.
and having that Swiss Army knife of breath. Bravo, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a steady evolution. So initially I was teaching one modality, then I was doing a video course, and then somebody came to me and asked me for something else. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Let me do some research into it, and then I had some guests on about it, and then now it's like, okay, I've got the experience of 83, 84 podcasts to draw upon now. I've had all these. I've been to a breath university where I've learned from people like you, and I draw upon all of those, and I remember the best bits, and I put them into the lessons. And it's more fun that way as well. I think if I was teaching the same thing over and over again, I'd go a little bit crazy. But because each person is unique and they've got their own journey, and I've got one client right now, and she's just really struggling. So she can only do a couple of minutes of breathing a day, really struggling. Got another one who's just flying, and she's like, leave me little, because I offer accountability as well as part of my package. So they get my WhatsApp, so we're on voice notes throughout the week. Send little notes back and forth, maybe a little video with an exercise. The other ones leave me, 5-minute updates telling me how they've done all the exercises, they're feeling fantastic, they've never felt this good, they've never slept this well, their relationships have got better, they're more concentrated. And so but each one requires a different part of me, which is lovely. But that's why I can only take on a few. I couldn't handle 20 people a month like this because they are, from my perspective, a little bit intense in terms of I need to build the workout for them. I need to be there for them. Sometimes they need like an emergency session where we jump on. But it's lovely. I feel so privileged I get to do this for a job. Like, 'cause I spent 2 decades in the corporate space working in energy of all things, destroying the planet for a profit. Middle manager, nobody below me wanted to work there, they all hated it. People above me were only interested in getting promoted. The customers were really unhappy, and you sit in the middle as like a middle manager, just getting not a lot of niceness from all those different groups. So very stressful job. And it's this thing a bit like the postal service. Your work is never done. So if you're a gardener or a landscaper and you get a project and you finish that project and you move on, there's something very nice about that. You're working with your hands, there's a finite time, and it's done. But I think one of the problems we have in the corporate space now is that work is never done. And I think that messes with our brains. It's just, and what happens is the more, I'm going off on a little bit of a rant here, the more that we get technologically savvy, so AI is out there now, what's always promised is more space and relaxation, but the opposite's true. You just have to, your output increases. So when I very first started, we were using old computers and we were actually using faxes back in 2004. So customers would be faxing me their credit card details. I'd pass them to the lady who'd put it into the system. Now it's all automated, but no one got any time back. They didn't say, oh, you can have half a day off now this week because we're so efficient. Like, no, they just give you more work to do. So, I feel very, very lucky that I get to work with these clients and create these bespoke packages. And I'm like so grateful. But I'm also so grateful for those 2 decades in the office space because it gave me a lot of empathy for people. There's a lot of people that are still there. I learned a lot. I learned how to talk, how to communicate. I learned how to film. I did videos for the production for the corporates. I learned sales. I learned marketing. I learned customer services. So it's not all demonized. But I do think it's only a certain kind of person can thrive in that corporate space. And I think it's a very small percentage of people. And I think the vast majority of people have got some dissatisfaction. I think we spoke about at the start, a lot of people are very unhappy. And they, I think in the US, I don't know the UK one, but I heard in the US, I think something like 80% of people don't like their job, which is tragic. They get up every day. So yes, so just closing that off, I love doing the bespoke coaching. It's a real privilege.
Yeah, waking up. Everybody's waking up. And if there's not an equal exchange of energy, that's not going to be good. And it's like everybody is pissed off because it's like you're used to getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning and somebody comes in and wakes you up at 5:30. And you know how you are when you're used to getting up at 7 and somebody comes in at 5:30, you're like, get out of my room. But it's like we're all being called to wake up. And I don't really know how it's going to shake out, but I think it's going to be a really good ending.
I hope so. I have some positivity, but I also have some negativity towards it. And so I like to try and lean to the glass half full approach. But there seems to be a lot of bad people out there as well, isn't there? There's a lot of bad players, but there's a lot of good. I've done a lot of travel. I've been really lucky to get all over the place. And, you think, oh my God, what's this country going to be like, or this one, or I've heard dodgy things about what they do to tourists here, and I never had a problem. I had my little laptop with me, and I went traveling for a year, and I was like, I already accepted it was going to get stolen. I did not have one thing stolen. We were traveling for 12 months. Nothing got stolen from me, only generosity and kindness. And so people are good. People are good. So there's a few bad players, but generally people are very good, I think. But, I still have a concern about where we're potentially heading.
Yeah, I get it. But, when you're around 10 negative people and you have one person of light, it's the one person of light who runs that room. It's really interesting, the power of positivity,
Yeah.
remaining silent, letting things go, being around all sorts of drama and just letting it pass through you like you're a screen door. Because we've got to control our inner environment. We can't be drawn into everything that's taking place. And in the you said something earlier. It's really interesting about the brain. The brain loves to get things done, and in the corporate setting today, it's never done. It's like having a nightstand. You've got 50 books that you've read, like 90% of it, but you haven't finished it. And a lot of this taking place during the day is what's destroying our sleep cycle, because the brain is designed to complete, finish, pause, start again. And if you have a constant influx of, other people and emails and to-do lists, you're balancing. Everybody's different, but everybody has the same brain. Everybody's brain is designed to bring things to completion upon starting. And it's really disturbing to kind of the animal part of the brain that thinks we're
So sorry. Give me two.
No, I love this.
Give me 2 seconds, Ed. We'll
Take your time. That's great. So we'll just take a couple deep breaths. We'll stay centered and know that that dog is bringing whatever he started to completion.
She's a good dog. She's a guard dog, and we have a lot of neighbors and a lot of noises outside and fireworks. And so she's just trying to be a protector. And I have to remember that sometimes, because it's like she's doing nothing wrong. She's just trying to save our lives, bless her.
She does it well.
She's a good dog, yeah. But when your baby's asleep in the next room, you're like, please be quiet.
God's with you, Mike, I'm sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
What's next in your career?
Oh, this is a good time to ask that, actually, because I did some strategy. This is my corporate brain kicking in. So there's some strategy. So I got some ambitions. I really want to dedicate the rest of my life to this. So this isn't a quick thing. And so I think about older Mike, who's grey with a big beard, who has got a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And so I'm trying to do right by him by continuing to be a student of the breath, learning different modalities, practicing them, teaching them. So that's kind of the old, and I really want to be in a place where I've got, the dream scenario would be to be in my own retreat center somewhere with a bit of sunshine, with a yoga place, and people come there and focus on health and wellness. That's kind of that's where I'm trying to get to. It's the first time I've mentioned that out loud, actually. So that's in public sphere. So that's where we're trying to get to. So right now it's just about making sure I pay the bills, because it's just me working now, because Nina's looking after our little one, which is cool. So just working with clients still, building the YouTube channel, and going to be looking at a membership program next year, like a very low ticket membership program for people that want to join. A couple of other projects underway as well. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting things that are happening, that we're just in the very early stages of planning at the minute. I teach some instructor training for another school for the Oxygen Advantage. So people that want to be a breathwork instructor can train with me. So yeah, a few bits. I had to really spend a lot of time at the start this year stopping some of those plates from spinning, because there was just too many. And I was like, I'm going to get burnt out. So I really cut it right down to like 2 or 3 things. The other thing I should probably mention is Airheads, which is wonderful collaboration with Tom Granger.
Yeah.
And I kind of describe that like a breathwork events company. So we get, wonderful people like you to come on board, and we put on like an event and sell some tickets, and people come for like a 2-day online seminar or something like that. So we're taking a little pause now till about May, and then we're going to come back strong in May, because we both got our respective projects. But yeah, I think overall it's just working with the breath. I don't do anything else. This is my main job now. Working with clients, continuing to put the free content on YouTube, which I love to do. And yeah, just trying to scale now, and yeah, bring in the money to cover the costs and just live life and be a good dad. That's the number one priority now. Is how can I be a role model and a good dad? Nothing else really matters after that. So yeah, staying grounded.
Man, breathing into that. But that is, you'll be at the end of the ride someday going, boy, I lived my life. And don't we all want that?
Yeah.
And figuring that out at a young age, gift, great gift.
Mm.
So let's talk about habits. These we're habitual creatures, and how can we as breath facilitators, what are some things that we can do with folks, Mike, that we can start to evolve our habitual mind into something that's more open and congruent with the bigger picture of what we can feel that's coming to us on earth right now?
So I can talk about what I do and what I've
That's
implemented with
right.
some clients. So this is like anecdotal, but has worked on me. And I've tried so many morning routines, bloody hell, so many nighttime routines, and some sticks, some don'ts. I've tried all the apps and blah. So there is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think it might be the number one most sold book in the world, nonfiction, self-help book. It's incredible. I highly recommend people get it. The
Thank
audio
you.
book is like an online course you would happily pay 10 grand for. The value in that book is shocking. And I really like the idea of just spending your time focused on one habit at a time. Because if you're like me, like, oh, I'm gonna do cold shower and I'm gonna go and get daylight and ground. I need to meditate for 20 minutes. I'm gonna fast and have a black coffee, and then I'm gonna do my bulletproof, and then I'm gonna do 10 press ups, and blah, 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 and then I need to journal. And after I've journaled, I'm gonna do another cold bath, and you build this routine, and you fail one day, and you feel terrible, and you get the shame and the guilt we spoke about at the start. And so, what I really like is a couple of bits from the habits from that book. One is just do one habit. Let's get that going. Know your why. Why do I want to do that one habit? Not have a cold shower. Why do I want a cold shower? Well, it's meant to be good for me. No, go deeper. Why do you want it to be good for you? Well, I want to feel better. Okay, so how do you feel? I don't feel very good right now. And why is it important to feel better? Because I can show up for my family better. Okay, why is that important? Because I want to be remembered as a good dad. And keep going, going. So get your why. Do your one habit. And then this is the genius. This has never failed me. And when I implement it with clients, it's I need to go and I don't know, need to go to the gym. I'm gonna make that my habit. I can't bother to go to the gym today. I'm tired. So you just go and do 1 minute. Get your gym kit on. It's gonna sound mental. You're gonna go to the gym or you're gonna go for a run. Just do 60 seconds and then stop. Now,
Right.
one of two things is going to happen. You'll stop at 60 seconds and go, okay, that wasn't too bad. Maybe I'll do 2 minutes tomorrow. Or what's also most likely going to happen is go, do you know what? I'm already running for 60 seconds. I might as well just carry on a little bit now. You end up doing your workout. So it's having this like mental jujitsu with your mind a little bit. Keep it simple, know your why, and make the path to resistance so light and so easy. It's effortless. So of course I'm going to go for a 60-second run. Why wouldn't I do a 60-second run? And then I'm just going to add on one last thing. I got this from Arnold Schwarzenegger from his new book, Be Useful, which, by the way, incredible. I'm going to go back and re-listen to it. It's like a man that's been so sick. I mean, think what you will politically, but think this man who conquered the physical world, Mr. Universe 7 times, conquered the movie world, highest paid movie star, most successful guy, all this sort of stuff, and then became governor of California, and yes, there's controversies there and all the rest of it, but this guy who's now 76 is now giving back, and he's giving you these life lessons and stuff. And he's talking about be useful, make sure that you contribute. And he breaks down habits, and he says, you know what, you should work out every day, but then don't think about it, just do it. And I was like, and I thought about it, which is the irony. I was like, he's right, because the minute I wake up and go, oh, I'm a bit achy today, I'm a bit tired, I probably deserve a cup of coffee, let's not work out. You're already losing the battle. So it's almost like, no, I've made an agreement with myself to just do. And I have I have a coach called Judy May, who's a wonderful human being. She coaches me on life and other things. And um, she said success is making commitments when you feel like it and doing them when you don't. I was like,
Right.
oof. So I'm like, tomorrow morning I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna work out. And then you wake up in the morning, oh, I can't be bothered. I feel tired. Well, that's not success, because yesterday you made a promise to yourself, and today you didn't do it. And so I
Right.
think it's this thing around, if I'm gonna say something when I feel good, the success is doing it when I don't feel good. And last bit on this, I just heard an Andrew Huberman podcast, and he's identified a region of the brain that grows when we do things we don't like to do. So if you enjoy working out, this part of the brain won't grow. But if you hate working out and you force yourself to do it, this part of the brain is going to grow. And he talks about seniors and how their brains shrink. And he said the vast majority of that shrink comes from this specific region of the brain. And what happens is we just don't do enough things we don't like to do. And so it's finding those things that are good for us that we don't really want to do and making ourselves do it. And in doing so, we increase our self-respect, our love for ourselves, and we grow our brain as well. So that's a bit of a long answer, Ed, but they're just some of the wisdoms and nuggets that I've talked about how to form like a habit.
That is just so deep. Folks, play the last 5 minutes back. You want to hear that twice. That was some real gold right there, Mike. That I tell folks, if you're not happy, lower your goals. Doesn't mean quit, but be happy. You know, find a level of participation in life, that's acceptable to you. Everybody's different. We all want the same thing.
Mm.
We want to feel some self-esteem, some self-confidence, that we have a seat at the table where the choices are being made, and if we can just get that, I think that's better than society, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I think we're living the life of kings, 500 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a choice, and just being grateful and having people like you out there really shows folks a lantern that's lit well to live a life filled with gratitude. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us. There'll be a whole bunch of information on the show notes below where you guys can get a hold of Mike. And if you ever get a chance to see him, he's one of the best people you ever meet in your life. He really cares about humanity. Thank you so much, Mike, for being with us.
Thank you for the invite. It's been always a pleasure talking to you, Ed. I had a great time. So, yeah, thank you.
You're the best, buddy.
Cheers, buddy.